The council chamber was silent. Ambassador Telvin stood at the center of the circular room, her blue skin reflecting the dim lights above. Around her, representatives from 30 different species watched holographic images float in the air. The images showed planets that were once full of life. Now they were dead worlds stripped of everything. Telvin pressed a button on her control device. The image changed to show thousands of dark shapes moving through space. They looked like insects, but each one was the size of a building. Some were bigger than mountains. They moved together as if they shared one mind. "This is the Kryn swarm," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook slightly. 3 civilizations are gone. The Barathi people, 7 billion souls, vanished in 2 weeks. The Kelmar colonies destroyed in days. The Sarian homeworld is now a barren rock. A representative from the Zalthiri species spoke up. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow. "We have seen this data before, Ambassador. Our combined fleets have engaged the Kryn multiple times. What more can we do?" Telvin touched her control device again. New images appeared, showing space battles. The galactic fleets fired their weapons. Bright plasma bolts and energy beams hit the Kryn ships. Many exploded. But the pieces came back together, forming new shapes. "The Kryn kept coming. They adapt," Telvin said. "Every weapon we use works once, maybe twice. Then they learn. They change. They become immune. We hit them with antimatter weapons last month. It killed millions of them. This week, those same weapons barely slowed them down." The chamber filled with worried voices. Representatives spoke to each other in different languages, all saying the same thing. They were afraid. The Kryn were getting closer to the core worlds where most of the galactic population lived. "I have a proposal," Telvin said loudly. The voices stopped. Everyone looked at her. "We need to contact the humans." The silence that followed was different. It was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of shock. The Zalthiri representative stood up. "The humans? Ambassador, they have been part of the galactic community for only 60 years. They are primitive, dangerous, they still fight wars among themselves." "Exactly," Telvin said. She pulled up new images. These showed human soldiers in battle. The images were from Earth's own history, from their wars. The council members looked away. The images showed violence they found disturbing. "We find their methods crude," Telvin continued. "But look at what they accomplish. Humans have fought each other for their entire history. They have survived ice ages, plagues, and near extinction multiple times. They keep going. They keep fighting. They never give up." A Karathi delegate, a being that looked like a floating crystal, spoke. Its voice sounded like musical notes. "What you describe is not a virtue. It is barbarism. We evolved beyond such behavior thousands of years ago. And now we face extinction," Telvin said quietly. "Perhaps we evolved too far. Perhaps we forgot how to truly fight." The humans have not forgotten. The debate went on for hours. Some agreed with Telvin. Most did not. But as the images of dead worlds continued to play in the background, fear won over pride. The council voted. By a narrow margin, they agreed to send a message to Earth. Dr. Emma Clark received the message 3 days later. She was at the Earth Embassy on Theta Station, a neutral meeting place between species. Emma was 42 years old and had spent half her life studying alien cultures. She thought she had seen everything. But when she read the message, her hands went cold. The message was simple. The galaxy was dying. They needed help. They needed soldiers. Emma sent the message to Earth Command immediately. She expected questions, debates, maybe weeks of discussion. Instead, she got a response in 12 hours. 3 battle groups were being prepared. They would launch in 2 days. Commander Lyra Voss stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant. She was 38 years old, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 20 years in the military, fighting pirates and rebels in the outer colonies. She had seen combat. She knew war. But this was different. "Show me the data again," she said to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was 29, tall and thin, with nervous energy that made him tap his fingers constantly. He pulled up the information on the main screen. 3 civilizations destroyed, Commander. Total population loss estimated at 15 billion. The Kryn consume everything. Metal, organic matter, even radiation. They turn it all into more of themselves. Lyra studied the images. The Kryn ships did not look like ships. They looked alive, organic. They had no clear weapons, no engines that made sense. They just moved and consumed. "How do you kill something like that?" asked the weapons officer. a young woman named Kate Phillips. "We figure it out," Lyra said. "That is what humans do." The Valiant was not alone. 2 other human battle groups traveled with them. Together they had 30 ships. Destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels. Each one carried weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Missiles with chemical warheads. Bombs filled with biological agents. Nuclear devices that most species considered too dirty to use. The fleet made the jump to hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light and then they were gone, traveling faster than light toward a war that might already be lost. On the Venlari homeworld of Kael'thara Prime, Telvin watched the communications display. A message had just arrived. The humans were coming. She felt relief but also worry. She had convinced the council to ask for help. Now she wondered if she had made the right choice. Her assistant, a younger Venlari named Kresh, entered her office. "Ambassador, the fleet commanders are asking for a meeting. They want to know about the humans, what they are like, what we should expect." Telvin looked at the data files she had on Earth and its people. There was so much information. Wars that lasted years, weapons that could destroy entire cities, but also art, music, philosophy. Humans were complicated. "Tell them the truth," she said finally. "Tell them the humans are dangerous. Tell them the humans do not fight like we do. They fight to win no matter the cost. And right now that is exactly what we need." The message was sent to all Venlari military forces. It was simple and direct. Humanity was coming to help. Be ready for anything. 5 days later, the human fleet arrived at the edge of Venlari space. They came out of hyperspace near a mining station called Outpost 7. The station's sensors detected them immediately. Within minutes, every ship in the sector knew the humans had arrived. Lyra Voss looked at the tactical display. She could see dozens of Venlari ships nearby. They were sleek and elegant, with smooth curves and bright colors. They looked like art pieces, beautiful but delicate. The human ships were different. They were angular and dark, covered in armor plating and weapon systems. They looked exactly like what they were, war machines. "We are receiving a communication from the Venlari flagship," said the communications officer. "Put it on screen," Lyra said. A Venlari face appeared on the screen. It was Admiral Krathnor, commander of the Venlari Defense Fleet. He had dark blue skin and eyes that looked tired. "Commander Voss, welcome to our space. We are grateful you have come." "Thank you, Admiral," Lyra said. "What is the current situation?" The Admiral's face became grim. "Bad. We are holding the line at Meridian 4, one of our colony worlds. But the Kryn are coming. We estimate they will arrive in 36 hours. We need to evacuate 4 million civilians. Evacuation will take too long," Jake Morrison said quietly, looking at his data. "We need to defend in place." Lyra nodded. "Admiral, we are coming to Meridian 4. We will help you defend the planet." The Admiral looked surprised. "Commander, you have not seen the Kryn fight. They are unlike anything you have faced. Perhaps you should observe first, understand what we are dealing with." Lyra smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Admiral, humanity has been fighting since we learned to walk. We have fought each other, our planet, even ourselves. We will figure this out. That is what we do." The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Very well. I hope you are right, Commander." For all our sakes, the communication ended. Lyra turned to her crew. "Set course for Meridian 4, maximum speed, and start preparing every weapon we have. I want options. Lots of options." The Valiant and the human fleet turned toward the colony world. Behind them, the Venlari ships followed. Together, they raced toward a battle that would change everything. The galaxy had asked for help. Humanity had answered. Now they would see what that really meant. Meridian 4 looked peaceful from orbit. The planet was covered in blue oceans and green continents. Cities glowed like jewels along the coastlines. 4 million Venlari lived there, farming and fishing, building lives far from the crowded homeworld. But the peace was ending. Commander Lyra Voss stood in the briefing room with Admiral Krathnor and his officers. The Venlari Admiral was showing them the defensive positions. Orbital platforms surrounded the planet, each one armed with plasma cannons and shield generators. On the ground, military units were positioned around every major city. "We have defended worlds before," the Admiral said. "Our shields can withstand significant bombardment. Our weapons are accurate and powerful, but against the Kryn it is never enough." Lieutenant Jake Morrison was studying data on his portable screen. He looked up. Admiral, I have been reviewing your previous battles with the Kryn. I notice a pattern. You always use the same types of weapons. Energy weapons. Plasma, particle beams, lasers. Those are the most effective weapons we have, one of the Venlari officers said. She was young and wore her military uniform with pride. They were effective, Jake said. But the Kryn adapted. What about kinetic weapons? Physical projectiles? Explosives? The Venlari officers looked at each other. The Admiral spoke carefully. We stopped using such primitive weapons centuries ago. They are inefficient compared to directed energy. Lyra leaned forward. But the Kryn have never faced them from you. They might not be adapted to resist them. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A voice came over the speakers. Kryn signatures detected at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts. Hundreds of contacts, everyone rushed to the command center. The main display showed the sensor data. At first, it looked like a cloud moving toward them. Then the computer enhanced the image. The cloud was made of living ships. Thousands of them. They moved together like a school of fish, but each fish was the size of a building. They are early, the Admiral said. His voice was tight with stress. We have 18 hours less than predicted. All ships to battle stations, Lyra said to her crew over the communication link. But hold fire. I want to watch how they fight. The Venlari fleet moved to intercept. 50 ships formed a defensive line between the Kryn and the planet. The orbital platforms powered up their shields. On the ground, millions of civilians looked up at the sky, not knowing what was coming. The Kryn came fast. They did not slow down or change formation. They just kept coming, a wall of living metal and organic matter rushing toward the defenders. Fire, Admiral Krathnor ordered. The Venlari ships opened up with everything they had. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness of space. Particle beams lanced out, invisible except where they hit their targets. The Kryn ships at the front of the swarm exploded. Pieces flew in all directions. It looked like victory, but the pieces came back together. Jake Morrison watched in horror as the fragments of destroyed Kryn ships merged with others. They formed new shapes, new configurations. Within seconds, the swarm had replaced its losses. They are not dying, he said quietly. We are just making them reorganize. The Kryn reached the Venlari line. Instead of firing weapons, they simply attached themselves to the ships. Jake watched on the tactical display as Kryn organisms, some small, some large, latched onto the hulls of Venlari vessels. Then they started burrowing inside. They are boarding us. A Venlari captain shouted over the communications. They are in the ship. They are in the walls. They are everywhere. One by one, the Venlari ships went silent. The Kryn consumed them from the inside, turning the metal and technology into more biomass, more soldiers for the swarm. Fall back, Admiral Krathnor ordered. His voice was filled with pain. All ships retreat to the planetary defense line. Activate the orbital platforms. The remaining Venlari ships pulled back. They had lost 20 ships in less than 10 minutes. The Kryn swarm followed, moving slowly now as if they knew victory was certain. Lyra Voss had seen enough. Morrison, did you get what you needed? Jake nodded, his fingers moving rapidly over his control panel. Yes, Commander. I have analyzed their structure. They are organic, but they use a biomechanical hybrid system. Their outer shell is part metal, part living tissue. Energy weapons burn through the tissue, but it regenerates too fast, and the metal parts just get recycled. What about chemical attacks? Lyra asked. They have never encountered them, Jake said. At least not from the Venlari. There is no evidence they have adapted to resist acids, toxins, or biological warfare agents. Lyra turned to her weapons officer. Kate, load chemical warheads in all missile tubes. I want a mix. Nerve agents, corrosive acids, and those new bacterial weapons from the research division. Kate Phillips looked uncertain. Commander, those weapons are banned by the Earth Galactic Treaty. We are not supposed to use them. The treaty says we cannot use them against sentient beings in wars of aggression, Lyra said. The Kryn are not sentient in the way the treaty defines it. They are a hive organism, and we are defending, not attacking. Load the weapons. Yes, Commander, Kate said. She began entering commands into her console. Dr. Emma Clark was watching from the back of the bridge. She had been quiet until now. Commander Voss, the Venlari will not understand this. Their culture considers chemical warfare barbaric. They will be horrified. They will be alive, Lyra said simply. That is what matters. The Kryn swarm reached the orbital platforms. The platforms opened fire with massive plasma cannons. The beams were so powerful they cut through dozens of Kryn ships at once. But still the swarm came. They landed on the platforms like insects on a light. Within minutes, the platforms stopped firing. The Kryn had taken them. They are entering the atmosphere, Jake reported. Estimate they will reach the surface in 20 minutes. Admiral Krathnor contacted the Valiant. Commander Voss, we cannot stop them. We need to begin evacuation immediately. Not yet, Lyra said. Admiral, we are going to try something. I need you to trust us. The Admiral looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. What do you need? Pull your forces back from the northern continent, Lyra said. Give us a clear firing solution. And tell your people on the ground to get inside and seal their buildings. The Admiral gave the orders. The Venlari military units retreated from the coastal areas where the Kryn were landing. The civilians rushed indoors, sealing doors and windows as they had practiced in drills. The Kryn landed like a meteor shower. Their bioships crashed into the ocean and emerged as walking nightmares. They were shaped like spiders, like wolves, like things that had no name in any language. They moved inland, consuming everything in their path. Trees, buildings, vehicles. Anything organic or metallic became food. Target locked, Kate Phillips reported. Firing solution confirmed. Fire, Lyra ordered. The Valiant launched 12 missiles. They streaked down through the atmosphere, leaving trails of fire. When they hit the ground near the Kryn concentrations, they did not explode in the traditional sense. Instead, they released clouds of chemicals. The Kryn marched into the clouds without slowing. They had walked through plasma fire and nuclear explosions. A cloud of gas meant nothing to them. Then they started dying. The nerve agents attacked their bioorganic neural networks. The Kryn organisms began twitching, their movements becoming erratic. The acids ate through their hybrid shells, creating wounds that did not regenerate, and the bacteria, specially engineered to attack and consume organic tissue, spread through the hive link like a plague. Within 5 minutes, thousands of Kryn organisms had collapsed. They dissolved into pools of organic sludge, their biomechanical parts falling apart as the living tissue that held them together broke down. The bridge of the Valiant was silent. Everyone stared at the display showing the tactical situation. The Kryn advance had stopped. The swarm was pulling back, dragging their dead and dying with them. It worked, Jake Morrison said. He sounded surprised. Of course it worked, Lyra said, but her hands were shaking slightly. She had gambled with millions of lives. If she had been wrong, the Kryn would have taken the planet while they watched. Admiral Krathnor appeared on the screen. His face showed a mixture of relief and shock. Commander, what did you do? Our sensors are showing massive contamination in the target zone. The Kryn are dying, but the area is toxic. We used chemical weapons, Lyra said directly. I know your people consider them barbaric, but they worked. The Kryn had never encountered them before. They had no defense. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. The contaminated zones will need to be cleaned. It will take months, perhaps years. Better than extinction, Lyra said. Admiral, the Kryn are regrouping. They will try again. Next time they might have adapted to these weapons. We need to hit them now, while they are vulnerable. We need to end this. The Admiral looked at her for a long moment. Then he straightened in his chair. Tell me what you need, Commander. My fleet is yours to command. For the first time since the Kryn had appeared, hope was in his voice. The humans had shown them something new. A way to fight back. A way to win. News of the victory at Meridian 4 spread quickly through the galactic community. For the first time since the Kryn had appeared, a defense had succeeded. The swarm had retreated. People began to hope again. But the victory came with questions. The Galactic Council demanded to know what weapons the humans had used. When Ambassador Telvin explained, the reaction was immediate and negative. The Zalthiri representative stood in the council chamber, his silver skin glowing with anger. Chemical weapons? Biological warfare? These methods are forbidden. They are against everything we stand for. Telvin remained calm. They saved 4 million lives. The Kryn had never encountered such weapons. They had no defense. It was effective. It was barbaric, the Karathi delegate said. Its crystalline form pulsed with different colors showing its distress. We asked the humans to help us fight, not to poison entire continents. The contamination is temporary, Telvin argued. Human scientists are already working with our environmental teams to clean the affected areas. In 6 months, the zones will be habitable again. Compare that to the alternative. If the Kryn had taken Meridian 4, there would be no planet to clean. Only a dead rock. The debate continued for hours. Some species agreed with Telvin. Others called for the humans to be removed from the conflict. But as more reports came in from Meridian 4, showing the Kryn in full retreat, the opposition grew quieter. Dr. Emma Clark watched the council session through a video link. She was still on Meridian 4, helping coordinate the cleanup efforts. She had seen the damage firsthand. Entire forests were stained with chemical residue. The ocean near the landing zones was cloudy with dissolved Kryn biomass and toxic compounds. But she had also seen something else. She had seen Venlari families returning to their homes, children playing in the streets, people crying with relief because they were alive. Is it worth it? Someone asked behind her. Emma turned. It was a Venlari scientist named Vresh. He was young, barely into adulthood by Venlari standards. He worked on the environmental cleanup team. Is what worth it? Emma asked. The damage, Vresh said. The contamination. Using such terrible weapons. Is it really worth it? Emma looked out the window at the city below. You are alive to ask that question. That is your answer. Vresh was quiet for a moment. My people have lived in peace for thousands of years. We resolved our conflicts through discussion and compromise. We built our civilization on the idea that violence is never the answer. That is a beautiful philosophy, Emma said. Humans have the same ideals. We dream of peace. We write about it, sing about it, pray for it. But we also know that sometimes survival requires hard choices. The Kryn do not negotiate. They do not compromise. They consume. Against an enemy like that, you need to be willing to do whatever it takes. Even if it makes you a monster? Vresh asked quietly. Emma met his eyes. Humans learned a long time ago that we all have a monster inside us. The question is not whether that monster exists. The question is when to let it out. We choose to unleash it only when the alternative is extinction. On the USS Valiant, Commander Lyra Voss was meeting with her senior officers. Lieutenant Jake Morrison had been analyzing the Kryn retreat. The data showed something interesting. They are not just retreating, Jake explained. They are reorganizing. Look at this pattern. The Kryn ships that survived our chemical attack are grouping together. They are sharing information through their hive link. They are learning. How long before they adapt? Lyra asked. Jake studied the data. Hard to say. Days, maybe weeks. But they will adapt. They always do. Next time we use chemical weapons, they might not work as well. Eventually, they will not work at all. Kate Phillips spoke up. Then we change tactics again. Use different weapons. Keep them off balance. That is exactly what we need to do, Lyra agreed. Jake, I want you to work with the engineering team. Design new weapon systems. Not just chemical, but biological, thermal, sonic, anything you can think of. We need variety. We need to hit them with something different every time. What about the Galactic Council? Kate asked. They are already upset about the chemical weapons. If we start using even more extreme methods, they might force us to leave. Lyra smiled grimly. Let them try. We were invited here to fight. We are fighting. If they do not like our methods, they can handle the Kryn themselves. Admiral Crathnor arrived for a meeting shortly after. He looked tired but determined. Commander Voss, I have received authorization from my government. We are placing the Venlari Defense Fleet under joint command with your forces. You will have access to all our resources and facilities. Lyra was surprised. Admiral, that is a significant step. Your people are trusting us with their defense. You saved Meridian 4, the Admiral said simply. You did what we could not. Yes, your methods are brutal. Yes, they go against our cultural values. But they work. Right now, that is all that matters. There will be more battles, Lyra warned. The Kryn will not stop. They will adapt and attack again. We need to take the fight to them. Find their main force and destroy it, the Admiral nodded. Our scouts have been tracking the Kryn movements. We believe they have a central staging area, a place where they gather and build their forces before attacking. If we could find it and destroy it, we might end this war. Then that is our mission, Lyra said. Find their base. Destroy it. End this. Over the next 3 weeks, human and Venlari forces worked together to prepare for a major offensive. The humans brought more ships from Earth. The Venlari contributed their advanced sensors and faster-than-light communication systems. Other species, seeing the success at Meridian 4, began sending ships as well. Jake Morrison spent most of his time in the weapons lab. He worked with Venlari scientists to create new types of weapons. Thermite bombs that could burn hot enough to vaporize the Kryn's organic components. Cryogenic missiles that could freeze them solid. Sonic weapons that disrupted the neural links between the bioorganisms. The collaboration was difficult at first. The Venlari scientists were brilliant, but they thought in terms of elegant solutions and minimal destruction. Jake had to teach them to think like humans, to embrace chaos, to accept that sometimes the best weapon was not the most efficient one, but the most unexpected one. Dr. Emma Clark served as a bridge between the two cultures. She explained to the Venlari that humans were not naturally violent. They had simply learned, through thousands of years of warfare, how to be effective at it when necessary. She showed them Earth's history. The wars, yes, but also the peace treaties. The weapons, yes, but also the medicine and art and philosophy. You see us as barbaric, Emma told a group of Venlari officers, but we see ourselves as survivors. Every human alive today is descended from people who survived wars, plagues, famines, and disasters. We carry that survival instinct in our genes. It makes us dangerous, yes, but it also makes us very hard to kill. One of the officers, a female named Catherine, asked a question. Do you enjoy war? Do humans take pleasure in violence? Emma shook her head. No, most humans hate war. We write songs and poems about how terrible it is. We create laws to limit it. We build monuments to remember those who died in it. But we also understand that sometimes war is necessary. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to fight. And the Kryn? Catherine asked. Do you hate them? Emma thought about it. No, you cannot hate a force of nature. The Kryn are like a wildfire or a flood. They are not evil. They are just doing what they evolved to do. But that does not mean we can let them win. A wildfire is not evil, but you still put it out to save your home. Finally, the scouts found what they were looking for. Deep in an empty region of space, far from any star system, the Kryn had built something massive. It was not a planet or a space station. It was a living structure, made from millions of bioships all connected together. It pulsed with energy. It grew larger every day as more Kryn ships arrived and merged with it. Admiral Krathnor and Commander Voss studied the images together. The structure was enormous, bigger than some moons. It would take a massive attack to destroy it. This is their staging area, the Admiral said. They have been gathering here for months, building their forces for a major push into our territory. Then we hit it now, Lyra said. Before they can launch their attack, we take every ship we have. We use every weapon we have. We do not stop until that thing is destroyed. The Admiral looked worried. Commander, we do not have enough ships to guarantee success. That structure is defended by thousands of Kryn vessels. We could lose everything in this attack. We will lose everything anyway if we do nothing, Lyra said. The Kryn are getting stronger every day. If we wait, they will be unstoppable. We need to act now while we still can. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then he straightened. Very well. I will send word to all Allied fleets. We attack in 3 days. May the ancestors watch over us. We make our own luck, Lyra said. She had said the same thing before every battle she had ever fought, and so far she was still alive. She hoped that luck would hold just a little longer, long enough to finish this war. The combined fleet gathered at the rally point. 300 ships from 15 different species filled the space around the rally station. Human destroyers and cruisers hung next to elegant Venlari vessels. Cell theory science ships worked alongside Karathi support craft. It was the largest military force the galaxy had assembled in 1,000 years. Commander Lyra Voss stood on the bridge of the Valiant, looking at the fleet display. Each ship was a small light on the screen. Together they looked like stars. She hoped they would be enough. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Jake Morrison said. Weapons armed, shields at maximum, jump drives charged. Admiral Krathnor appeared on the communication screen. Commander Voss, the fleet is yours to command. Give the word when you are ready. Lyra took a breath. 300 ships, thousands of crew members, all depending on her decisions. It was not the first time she had carried such responsibility, but it never got easier. All ships, she broadcast on the fleet channel. This is Commander Voss. Today we are going to do something that has never been done before. We are going to attack the Kryn in their home territory. We are going to destroy their staging base. This will not be easy. Many of us might not come back. But remember why we fight. We fight for our homes. We fight for our families. We fight so that the galaxy can live free from the shadow of the swarm. Stay focused. Follow your orders. and trust each other. Valiant out, she nodded to Jake. Take us in. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. For several minutes, they traveled through the strange realm where faster-than-light travel was possible. Then they emerged in the void between, the empty region of space where the Kryn had built their megastructure. Contact, Jake called out. Multiple Kryn signatures, thousands of them, and that is just what we can see on sensors. The main display showed the megastructure. It was even more massive than the reconnaissance images had suggested. It looked like a nightmare-given form. Bioorganic matter twisted and pulsed. Kryn ships of every size orbited around it, connected by tendrils of living tissue. Energy crackled along the connections. It is beautiful in a terrible way, Dr. Emma Clark said quietly. She was on the bridge as an observer. Like watching a hurricane or a volcano. Power without conscience. Target the connecting tendrils, Lyra ordered. That is how they coordinate. Cut enough of those connections and the whole thing might fall apart. All ships weapons free. Engage at will. The fleet opened fire. 300 ships unleashed everything they had. Missiles streaked through space, leaving trails of fire. Energy beams lanced out invisible until they hit their targets. Kinetic projectiles moved at incredible speeds, turning the vacuum of space into a storm of metal. The human ships led the charge. They fired chemical warheads, biological weapons, thermite bombs, and cryogenic missiles. Each weapon was different. Each attack unpredictable. The Kryn had learned to adapt to single types of weapons, but facing dozens of different threats at once overwhelmed their ability to respond. The Kryn swarm reacted like a disturbed hive. Thousands of bioships detached from the megastructure and moved to intercept. They came in waves, each wave shaped differently than the last. Some looked like giant insects. Others were just masses of tentacles and teeth. None of them looked like anything that should exist. Incoming, Jake shouted. Multiple contacts breaking through the outer screen. The battle became chaos. Ships fired in all directions. The Kryn swarmed over the fleet, trying to attach themselves to hulls and burrow inside. But the human ships had learned from previous battles. They had coating on their hulls, chemicals that burned Kryn tissue on contact. They had point defense systems that targeted anything that got too close. Still, ships began to fall. A Venlari cruiser disappeared under a swarm of Kryn organisms. A Zalthiri science vessel exploded when its reactor was breached. A human destroyer, the USS Phoenix, rammed a Kryn carrier organism and detonated its remaining weapons, taking both ships out in a massive explosion. We are losing ships faster than planned, Kate Phillips reported. Her hands moved quickly over her weapons console, directing the Valiant's fire. At this rate, we will not have enough ships left to complete the mission. Then we need to change the plan, Lyra said. She studied the tactical display, looking for an advantage. The Kryn were strong, but they had a weakness. They all connected back to the central structure. That was both their strength and their vulnerability. Jake, those bioorganic tendrils connecting everything together. What are they made of? Jake pulled up analysis data. They are a hybrid of nerve tissue and data transmission fibers. They let the Kryn coordinate across vast distances. They share information, adapt together, function as one organism. What happens if we sever enough of them? Emma asked. Theoretically, the megastructure would lose coordination, Jake said. Individual Kryn units would be isolated. They would not be able to share adaptations. They would be easier to kill. Then that is what we do, Lyra said. All ships, new targeting priority. Ignore the individual Kryn ships. Focus all fire on the connecting tendrils. Cut them, burn them, freeze them. I do not care how, just destroy them. The fleet changed tactics. Human ships used their variety of weapons to attack the tendrils from multiple angles. Venlari vessels provided covering fire, keeping the Kryn swarm busy while the humans worked. Other species contributed their unique technologies. Karathi ships used resonance weapons that made the organic tissue vibrate until it tore apart. Zalthiri vessels fired focused gravity beams that crushed the tendrils. The megastructure began to destabilize. As more connections were severed, parts of it lost coordination. Sections that had been working together started moving randomly. Some Kryn ships detached and fled into deep space. Others turned on each other, unable to recognize friend from foe without the guiding intelligence of the hive link. It is working, Jake said. The central structure is breaking apart. But victory came at a terrible cost. The Kryn fought with desperate fury. More ships fell. The USS Denver, the Guardian, the Pride of Venlara. Each loss was announced over the communication channels. Each name was another reminder of the price of this battle. Admiral Crathnor contacted the Valiant. His face showed strain. "Commander, we have lost over 100 ships. My people are asking if we should retreat." Lyra looked at the tactical display. The megastructure was dying, but it was not dead yet. If they retreated now, the Kryn would rebuild. All the sacrifice would be for nothing. "Tell your people we finished this," she said. "Tell them every ship we lost makes it more important that we win. We do not waste their sacrifice by running away." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Understood. We will see this through to the end." The fleet pressed forward. Human ships took point, absorbing the worst of the Kryn attacks while other vessels targeted the remaining tendrils. The Valiant itself took several hits. Hull breaches on deck 7 and 12. Fire in the engine room. Casualties throughout the ship. But they kept fighting. That was what humans did. They kept fighting when logic said to retreat. They kept pushing when others would give up. It was not about bravery or honor. It was about stubbornness, about refusing to accept defeat. "Final tendril cluster targeted," Kate reported. Her uniform was torn and she had a cut on her forehead, but her hands were steady. "Firing everything we have left." The last of the Valiant's missiles launched. They hit the final major connection point between sections of the megastructure. The tendril exploded in a spray of organic matter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire megastructure began to collapse. Without the coordinating neural network, it could not maintain its form. Sections pulled apart. The central core, massive and pulsing with energy, began consuming its own ships in a desperate attempt to survive. The Kryn swarm fragmented completely. Individual ships fled in random directions, no longer coordinated, no longer part of a unified force. Some exploded as their bioorganic systems failed. Others simply drifted dead in space. "The megastructure is collapsing," Jake announced. "All major coordination nodes are destroyed. The Kryn are in full retreat." The bridge crew cheered. Even the usually calm Venlari officers celebrated. They had done it. They had destroyed the Kryn staging base. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "All ships cease fire. Damage reports. Get me a count of our remaining forces." The reports came in slowly. Of the 300 ships that had entered the battle, 147 remained combat capable. Another 50 were damaged but repairable. The rest were gone. It was a terrible price. But looking at the destroyed megastructure, seeing the Kryn in disarray, Lyra knew it had been necessary. The Kryn had been preparing to attack the core worlds. If they had launched that attack, billions would have died. Admiral Crathnor appeared on screen again. This time he was smiling. It was the first time Lyra had seen him smile. "Commander Voss, you did it. You actually did it. The Kryn are broken." "We did it together," Lyra corrected him. "Every species here contributed. Every ship that fell made this victory possible." She looked around her damaged bridge, at her injured crew, at the tactical display showing the ruined Kryn megastructure. "Now we go home. And we hope we never have to do this again." 3 months had passed since the battle in the void between. The galaxy was slowly returning to normal. Trade routes reopened. Refugees went back to their homes. Children played in streets that had been empty with fear. But the Galactic Council chamber was not peaceful. Representatives from 30 species had gathered for an emergency session. The topic was humanity, and what role they would play in the galaxy's future. Ambassador Telvin sat in her seat, listening to the debate. Some species wanted to grant humanity full membership immediately. Others wanted restrictions. A few wanted humans expelled from galactic space entirely, despite everything they had done. The Zalthiri representative stood to speak. "The humans saved us. I do not deny this. But the methods they used were barbaric. Chemical weapons. Biological warfare. They turned Meridian 4 into a toxic zone. They showed no hesitation in using the most terrible weapons imaginable. And we are alive because of it," Telvin said, standing. "You speak of barbarism from the safety they provided. The Kryn would have killed us all. Every single being in this chamber would be dead or consumed. The humans did what we could not. They fought without rules because the Kryn had no rules." The Karathi delegate pulsed with colors of distress. "What happens when they turn those weapons on us? What happens when humanity decides we are the enemy? Then you should not make them your enemy," Commander Lyra Voss said from the gallery. She had been invited to attend as a witness. Now she stepped forward. We did not ask to be involved in your war. You came to us. You asked for help, we gave it. If you do not like how we fight, perhaps you should have specified that in your invitation. The chamber fell silent. Lyra continued. Humanity is not perfect. We have a long history of violence. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We have made terrible mistakes. But we learn from them. We created rules for warfare. We built international laws. We established peace on our own world, not because we are naturally peaceful, but because we chose to be. Dr. Emma Clark stood beside Lyra. The question you should ask is not whether humans are dangerous. We are. The question is whether we can be trusted. And I think 3 months ago when you called for help, you already answered that question. The Zalthiri representative spoke again, but his tone was less hostile. What does humanity want? What do you expect in return for your help? Lyra considered the question. We want what we have always wanted, to be part of something larger than ourselves, to trade, to learn, to grow. We want to be partners, not servants or conquerors. We proved ourselves in war. Now give us a chance to prove ourselves in peace. The debate continued for hours. Finally, the council took a vote. The results were close but decisive. Humanity would be granted full membership in the galactic community. But there would be conditions. Human military forces would be integrated into a joint defense command. They would share their weapons technology, but under strict oversight. They would establish training programs to teach other species their tactics. And any use of chemical or biological weapons would require council approval. Lyra accepted the terms on behalf of Earth's government. She knew the restrictions were more symbolic than practical. If another crisis came, no one would care about paperwork. But symbols mattered. They showed respect and willingness to cooperate. After the session ended, Telvin met privately with Lyra and Emma. They sat in a quiet room overlooking Theta Station's main docking area. Ships from dozens of species came and went, a reminder of how diverse the galaxy was. Thank you, Telvin said simply, for everything. My people owe you a debt we can never fully repay. You do not owe us anything, Lyra said. We did what anyone would do when asked for help. No, Telvin corrected gently. You did what most species could not do. You made the hard choices. You accepted the moral weight of those choices. That takes a special kind of courage, Emma spoke up. Ambassador, can I ask you something? Why did you trust us? Why did you convince the council to call for help from a species you barely knew? Telvin smiled. Because I studied your history. I saw what you survived. Every other species in the galaxy had relatively easy paths to civilization. We faced challenges, yes, but nothing like what Earth experienced. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, plagues that killed half your population, and you survived all of it. You adapted. You kept going. I knew that if any species could defeat the Kryn, it would be the species that refused to die. We are stubborn, Lyra admitted with a small smile. You are survivors, Telvin said. And now you are our allies. I hope that in time you will be our friends. Lieutenant Jake Morrison had returned to Earth. He stood in a classroom at the new Galactic Military Academy, looking at the students in front of him. They were young officers from 12 different species. Human, Venlari, Zalthiri, Karathi, and others. All of them wore uniforms. All of them had volunteered to learn. Today we talk about adaptability, Jake said. Not just adapting your weapons or your tactics. Adapting your thinking. The Kryn were almost unbeatable because they adapted to every threat. But they had a weakness. They could only adapt to what they had seen before. They had no imagination. They could not predict creativity. A Venlari student raised her hand. Instructor Morrison, is that why humans won? Because you were more creative? Jake shook his head. We won because we were willing to try anything. We did not care if a weapon was elegant or efficient. We cared if it worked. Sometimes the best solution is not the most advanced one. Sometimes you need to go back to basics. Use fire, use poison, use whatever gives you an advantage. Another student, a young Zalthiri, asked a question. But how do you maintain your principles while fighting that way? How do you stay civilized? Jake was quiet for a moment. You remember why you fight? You fight to protect something, not to destroy something. When the battle is over, you help rebuild. You make the hard choices during war, but you make the right choices during peace. That is how you stay civilized. On Meridian 4, the cleanup was almost complete. The contaminated zones had been treated with Earth-developed bacteria that broke down the toxic compounds. Venlari environmental teams worked alongside human engineers to restore the damaged ecosystems. Emma Clark walked through one of the formerly contaminated areas. It was remarkable how much had recovered. Green plants grew where there had been only dead soil. Fish swam in waters that had been toxic. Life was returning. A young Venlari named Vresh approached her. He was the same scientist who had questioned whether the damage was worth it. Now he worked on the restoration team. "Dr. Clark," he said, "I owe you an apology. I questioned what your people did. I said it made you monsters. But I was wrong." Emma shook her head. "You were not wrong to question. You should always question. That is how civilizations stay moral. But you also have to accept that sometimes the answer to your questions is uncomfortable. Sometimes survival requires sacrifice." "I am learning that," Vresh said. He looked around at the recovering landscape. "You destroyed this place to save it. It does not make sense, but it worked." "War never makes sense," Emma said. "That is why we should avoid it when possible. But when it is necessary, we should fight to win as quickly as possible. A short, brutal war is better than a long, civilized defeat." Commander Lyra Voss stood on the observation deck of the USS Valiant. The ship had been repaired and was now part of the Joint Defense Fleet. She looked out at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened. Admiral Crathnor joined her. The Venlari officer had become a friend over the past months. They had fought together, bled together, and mourned their fallen together. "The scouts report that Kryn activity has dropped to almost nothing," the Admiral said. "A few isolated groups remain in deep space, but they are disorganized. No longer a threat." "Good," Lyra said. "But we should stay alert. Threats can come from anywhere." "Indeed," the Admiral agreed. "Which is why the Joint Defense Fleet exists. Humans, Venlari, and others working together, combining our strengths, covering each other's weaknesses." "You have the technology," Lyra said. "We have the tactics. Together we make a good team." "More than good," the Admiral said. "We make an excellent team. The galaxy is safer because of what we accomplished together." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Finally, Lyra spoke again. "Admiral, do you think we will face another threat like the Kryn?" The Admiral considered the question. "Perhaps. The galaxy is vast. We have explored only a small part of it. There could be other dangers waiting. Other challenges. Then we face them together," Lyra said firmly. "That is what allies do?" "Yes," the Admiral agreed. "Together." Months turned into a year. The galaxy adjusted to its new normal. Humanity became an established member of the galactic community. Human ships patrolled alongside Venlari vessels. Human engineers worked on Zalthiri stations. Human teachers trained students from dozens of species. Some species remained suspicious. They watched human military forces with caution. They debated whether humanity's aggressive nature would eventually become a problem. But most had accepted the truth. Humanity was dangerous, yes, but they were dangerous to enemies, not to friends. The Kryn had taught the galaxy a valuable lesson. Sometimes survival requires more than philosophy and ideals. Sometimes it requires the